if we break up, you will cry for years for me.
Oh my God,
I'm not kidding.
Are you kidding me?
Please, it's not ego. I know you. I am the perfect match for you.
I could say no, but if I say no, then you're just going to make assumptions anyway, and that's just going to be a continuous argument.
No, when you say no,
So no.
When I heard Mina was moving into the neighborhood, I thought, she needs a stitching bitch.
But now, thinking about it, I feel like I was really hard on him.
At the end of my last contract, I went home, but I never sent an email telling them I'm quitting.
I have no choice but to do this behind her back and plead for forgiveness later, I guess.
Well, there was no rule that says do not talk to my ex. She should add it later.
Touché. I love you, that's why.
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking I could find a relationship better than this.
What?
Isn't it interesting that just as the world is falling in love and forgiving Sarper, Shekinah is detesting him? Either the plastics are cracking under pressure or this is their audition for the last resort. All of these couples are full of surprises this episode. Let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome back to Nikki Faces Reality. We are here to discuss 90 Day Fiancé, Season 11, Episode 12. I know that we are at the point of the season where some of these couples are just a tinge annoying, so I am going to add in the timestamps in the description so that you can skip along as you please. Thank you guys so much for being here. While you're here, make sure to like and comment, and if you're new here, subscribe. We're going to start off with Maddie and Stevie. This is a couple for me that I'm always like, so in the last episode, Mahdi was pissed because he found out that Stevie is still doing naked portraits of people, and this has him in a tizzy, trying to figure out, is he enough for her? Is she bisexual? And it doesn't help that Stevie is avoiding this question like the plague. Not only just avoiding, she's becoming really nasty in her ways of deflecting. And I find it interesting because from the jump of this season, we have seen her deal with all different types of anxieties, things that she needs affirmation in. So it's very interesting to see when it's her turn to provide that sort of like consolation, and she refuses. She's being stubborn, which to me makes me feel like she is hiding something. So in this episode, we see them the next morning. He is, at home looking at the paintings that are all over the house. She doesn't feel like she did anything wrong, and her way of trying to make up is to get him a protein shake. She picks him up. He is still pissy in the car. She's pissy that he's pissy. They go for a walk. And he's like, listen, I'm only going to ask you this one more time. I need these answers before we get married. Before he even asks, she's like, I already know what you're going to ask me, and it's so annoying. He's like, I just need you to let me know. I need to know that I'm enough for you. She was like, it's ridiculous that you're even asking me this. Like, I am with you. I only want you. And he's like, it's a yes or no answer. She's like, no. And what now? What if I change my mind later? You just need to trust me. That's not how trust works. And the fact that she's like, no, now can you leave me alone? Do you think that that's going to instill confidence in your partner? I would love to know your take on this couple because I watch other content creators and love to see how we can be divided on this. I saw someone say that they think that Maddie is always complaining, and that's not my take on him. I think that he's a guy that's trying to adjust and is asking questions, and every time he asks questions, it's a problem. And it's just so interesting to me that she's like, oh, it doesn't matter, but it's like, it matters to him, so it should matter to you, just like you expect him to care about the things that you care about. It's a very selfish way to look at relationships, and she was married before, I'm just saying. But also, when it comes down to her sexuality, I completely understand her not wanting to talk about it on camera. I am not confident that she's willing to have the conversation at all with Mahdi, because if she was, they would have talked about it off camera. But the fact that they haven't talked about it, so he just keeps asking, it's just off. And I think that if it were the other way around, she wouldn't stop interrogating him. So the way that she's like, can you stop already? I don't see things as promising. But from social media, it looks like he's still in America. So I would assume that they got married. She just seems really off-putting for me. But anyway, that's my opinion. We're going to go through Aaliyah and Shawn really quickly. These two are bedazzling jackets for her dog for the wedding. And Shawn jokingly is like, are you getting cold feet? And Aaliyah takes a long time to answer. Personally, I think that Shawn has cold feet, but Aaliyah does too, because Aaliyah is not feeling connected to her body. She recognizes that her transition is causing a shift in her relationship, but she's also feeling the shift with their intimacy. As you guys recall, Shawn made it very clear if their intimacy is not up to par, he is going to open that relationship up again. And Aaliyah does not want that. But also, she's not a freaking schmeck slave, you know? She's allowed to say, yes, I want it now. No, I don't want it now. And what's happening from what she said is that when they're doing the deed, she doesn't feel as open. She doesn't feel connected to her body. She's really insecure. So she's considering more procedures. And I completely understand her not feeling in alignment with her body and wanting to make those changes. But it sounds like part of their disconnect as they're going through this transition is that she isn't communicating with Shawn. And I don't think that Shawn needs to be the end-all be-all of what she considers, but he at least should be number 2 in my opinion. And from the way that Shawn talked about it, he feels like he's an afterthought. And I do find that interesting because, again, I don't think that he gets to decide what she does with her body. But I do find it interesting that Aaliyah is making these decisions and expecting him to fund it and not including him in the thought process. I think that there's a disconnect here. And so we do see them at a consultation. And again, Shawn, I give him a lot of flack with the language that he uses around this transition, but he is doing his best to be super supportive. Aaliyah is eager, very early in her journey, and she's at that consultation and she has no idea what she really wants. And I'm glad that the doctor's like, you can think about it. There's many different ways to go about it. There's surgery, there's hormones. It doesn't really sound like she knows anything yet and needs to keep doing research. But I'm excited for her. I'm excited for her to find something that works because she scares me when she talks about wanting to get rid of this bone. I'm like, girl, try hormones. Hormones make miracles in your facial features before you start breaking bones. Because that, I was like, girl, we're talking about skull surgery and that is drastic. That's all we got in this episode. The next one is the throuple, y'all. The throuple is obviously beyond scripted, but I am entertained and I did not expect to be entertained. So as you guys recall, they're back in Ani's hometown and Ani is like, I'm not staying with y'all. I gotta go to the strip club and make my money. To which Amani and Matt were so pissed about. I mean, in the last episode, we saw that Amani finally told Matt, yeah, Ani told me that she's in love with me more than she's in love with you. I would love to know your thoughts on that. I don't think that that is true. I think that Ani told Amani that so that she can shut up because she's obviously the ringleader of this whole thing. And if you keep her happy, she'll stop whining. It's obvious to me from the jump that Matt and Ani do have a connection, but I think Ani is downplaying it for Amani. But Matt felt a way about this news and we see them in this episode all meet up. Amani insists on doing everything in threes. Everything has to be equal, even the hugs. It is so annoying. But she's there and she's like, yeah, I planned a whole date for you guys. And you could see that she is not happy about it. She's like, I can't believe that I set my husband on a date with another woman. But she wants Ani. And she needs to be a team player. In order for Matt to not cancel this entire mission of hers, she needs to keep him happy. So she's like, fine, I'm going to set up a date for you guys. And when Amani leaves the restaurant, it is so awkward. Matt and Ani are like avoiding eye contact for a minute. And she finally breaks and she's like, what are you thinking? And he tells her, he's like, I was jealous to hear what Amani said. And Ani's like, well, she makes her feelings more known to me. And you don't really give me much to work with. Which again is interesting to me because they immediately lock in. They're like, oh my God, Okay, we're gonna work at this. And immediately are making out and immediately are melting into each other. To the point that as they're making out, she's like, do you remember the rules? AKA, Amani does not want us to bang without her permission. I mean, this was always a disaster waiting to happen, but like, the stronger that they are, the more Amani's gonna bitch about it, you know? And so Matt arrives to where Amani is after his date, and he is glowing. He has a pep in his step. He is feeling good, and Amani is here to reign on the whole operation. She's like, yeah, so I've been texting with Ray, Ani's ex. And Matt is like, why are you doing that? And this is where I'm like, Amani, you act like Ani is your property, and this is crossing so many lines. So what she says is that she's been sending Ani money, right? And she has to send it to the specific account that Ani had with her ex-boyfriend, Ray, who's an American. And she has all these questions, and she feels like Ani gives her mixed, stories. So she wants to get the real from Ray. But I feel like you are trying to marry this woman. You need to practice trust and or maybe get her in a room with Ray and ask in front of her. But to do it behind her back and then be like, I'll plead for forgiveness later. That is crazy. That is off the wall. And I just think that that's a huge assumption to make, that Ani will just get over it. Because I think that Ani is making it very clear, I am not your toy. I am not a puppet. You don't get to control me. And Amani, I think, is like forcing her hand a bit. And so Matt is hearing this and he's like, she's gonna be pissed. Like, this is not a good idea. And Amani's like, she's left us no choice. And I think the stinger for me is just her hypocrisy about it. Like, Matt is like, this is not a good idea. And she's like, well, it's not one of the rules that I can't meet one of her exes. Maybe she'll make it after this. And this is what I mean, that Amani's need for control is such a turnoff. And not the flex that she thinks this is, like her need for power over someone. The rules are supposed to be in there to help you guys, not as a means to control. You set the rule in a throuple that they can't bang without your knowledge or without you because you are jealous. That's why you did that. Ani was never going to set a rule that you can't talk to your exes, because I don't think she could have ever fathomed that you would go and betray her, because this is a betrayal in my opinion. I would love to know what you guys think. And they go to this restaurant and the guy shows up and they're stunned because he's not conventionally attractive. But we don't know this man. We don't know his history. We don't know his heart. We don't know how he's provided. We don't know anything. So we'll get to know more about that in the next episode. But these two clowns just need to go back to their kids and stop messing with this girl's life. Let's move on to Mark and Mina. So it's a super short segment, but Mark is on the job. He is away. Mina is alone in the house that was decorated by his ex-wife. She's looking around. If I were her, Mark would be coming back to a completely different house, okay? So she starts moving pictures around. She starts going through his drawer. And I guess he's flown Kamala Harris before. I'm guessing Mina doesn't know who Kamala is because she finds a picture of them and she's like, Maria, who is this woman? I'm going to leave it out so Mark can explain himself. And I'm like, this lady was almost our president and you don't know who that is? But anyway, she's going to go to Martini Pat's house for a little girls moment. And Martini Pat, I think that's her name. I love this lady. She took a liking to Mina from the moment she met her, and she invited her to Stitch and Bitch, which is where all the pilot wives hang out and they just rant. They just let it all out from being with their type A husbands. And I just think that this is the community that Mina probably didn't know she needed. They ask her how she's doing, and she's keeping it light until they ask about the family. And she just can't hide it. She's like, I feel so alone. They want me to sign a prenup. I've left everything behind, my job, my friends, my life, my everything, my child. And they're like, girl, we get it. It's so tough. We can't imagine what you're going through. But before you sign that prenup, make sure that you are protected. And they planted the seed that she needs to include Clayton in this, because if God forbid something happens to her, Mark needs to take care of all of her kids. And my heart really broke for her, because I really do think that Mina is misunderstood. I think that, she's really guarded by default, and she may appear stuck up, but I think she's a good person. And I just wish her the best. And Mark gets on my nerves because he does not have a backbone. But I hope that when they talk about this next week, that he doesn't piss me off. So that's that. Let's move on to Juan and Jessica. So these two are driving to Colorado to look at a wedding venue that Jessica picked out. And obviously, he was on the boat. She had boots on the ground. She was going to do the planning. However, why would you plan a winter wedding outside? But also, you are getting married to someone that isn't even used to the cold yet. His family isn't used to the cold, and they're going to fly in from Colombia. Did you think about anybody else? I know that she saw the venue in the spring and it was gorgeous, and I'm sure that it is. But in the winter, girl, I am an overthinker, and I would just be thinking to the day, what if there is a blizzard on my wedding? I personally fantasize about a beach wedding, but I know that I could never have a beach wedding because I just can't leave the fate of my day on Mother Nature. So Juan gets to the venue, he's looking around, and he's like, my family's gonna be freezing. Also, this is very Americanized. There's nothing about it that says that a Colombian is getting married. And Jessica is annoyed. And I am with her if she's annoyed because she has talked out the planning with him and it's been a year. I am with her if that. I am not with her if she has done all the planning and just expects him to show up. She makes a comment of like, well, you had a year to tell me what you wanted. But I'm also like, Jessica, you are in an interracial, intercultural relationship. You're going to go into an intercultural marriage. You didn't think, like, screw what he thinks. You didn't think that it would be important to incorporate that? I find that very odd. So when they're right back home, they're both really tense. She's annoyed because she feels like, he's raining on her parade of all the planning that she's done. And he's in his head because he's like, okay, I get it. Like, you picked this place because of our budget. We'd have more money if I could go back to the cruise. And he's kind of resenting the fact that he's not making money of his own. But then, y'all, we see him have a workout session with Crazy Megan's husband. Yes, that lady is married. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, okay? But they're working out. And I was screaming at my TV, Juan, shut up. Because Juan thinks, okay, I'm having a guy's moment. I can let him know my thoughts, my worries, and no. Because he's going to go and tell Crazy Megan during pillow talk everything you said, and it's going to get back to Jessica. So this is not a man that you should consider your safe space. Mr. Megan is telling him, like, yeah, you ready for your bachelor party? We're going to do this. Have you been gambling? And Juan is like, no, I haven't been gambling, but I also don't have money for that. Mr. Megan is like, you don't have to worry about that. I got you. And Juan is like, I hate that. I wish that I had my own money. And my boss has been calling me up about another cruise contract. Mr. Megan is like, Jessica's not going to like that. And apparently, Juan never quit his job. He just told his boss, I'm going to get some paperwork ready. But he never officially was like, I'm never coming back. He always left the door open. And so Mr. Megan is telling him, well, it's not going to be like the cruise, but we have other jobs here. And the way that he's talking about it, it's not as exciting. And Juan is like, yeah, I think I want to go back to the cruise. And I'm like, stop telling Mr. Megan. And Juan is like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I want to go back to the cruise. And Mr. Megan is like, well, your wife is not going to want that because that means she's going to be alone again doing everything. And Juan is like, yeah, I'm going to have to talk to her about it. And here's the thing, Juan. The minute you get home, you need to have that conversation because you need to be Megan from doing it because you know she's going to find out the minute her husband gets home. So this is just a mess, and I just know that it's going to implode. But anyway, let's move on to Greg and Joan. These two are washing up the puppies, and there was a point that Greg said something like he's jealous that she can't bathe him like that. And I'm like, Greg, you're not beating the allegations that you are just a sloth, okay? But all of a sudden, he gets a call. He goes into the house, and obviously it's from the state. He comes back. At first, you can't really tell with his face what the verdict was, but he finally tells Joan, I have a job. Hallelujah. Because Joan was ready to pack her bags and go back to Uganda. You could see the relief come over her. So to celebrate, we see them drive up to Manhattan. It's not far from Long Island. And Greg wants to show her around. And honestly, and as a New Yorker, I feel like it's very easy to take the city for granted. So I work in Midtown. I see Times Square more than I need to. But I love seeing people's eyes light up when they see the magic of it. It's really beautiful. And so I loved seeing Joan take it all in. I loved seeing her have dollar slices. I practically lived off of those in my early 20s. Greg splurged on a hotel room for the first night. And I just thought it was really sweet. He wanted it to be a really romantic day for them. And I think mission accomplished. And Joan had a moment to reflect, and she's like, I might have been too hard on him. I should have, given him more grace, but I just wanted the best for him. And she told him that. She's like, I'm sorry I was hard on you. I just was thinking about our future, but I'm so grateful for you. And you could tell that he really needed to hear that. So good for them. Let's see if he keeps it up. I personally don't have a lot of faith in him, but so the final couple is Sarper and Shekinah. I'm a little torn on these two because I believe the drama and at the same time, I don't. So in the last episode, they got back from Montana, wherever they were, and, it was a good visit, but then all of a sudden they got back and the drama was just at another level. The cameras weren't there for a fight, but Shekinah recorded their fight, and it just seemed really petty, but really real. I think that they're stuck in that tiny apartment. There's a lot of adjusting that needs to happen, and there's a power shift. And I think the power shift is natural to happen when you're on this K-1 visa. But I think when you're used to being top dog, it's hard to have that sense of humility of like, damn, I really have to depend on my partner. And in turn, I think it says a lot about the partner that's now in power with the grace that they provide and the tenderness that they provide and understanding that they can provide when your partner's going through all these changes. Both of these people are not ready to give each other grace. And this is where we are. Apparently, they've been giving each other the silent treatment for 3 days. And finally, Sarper comes in and he's like, hey, can we talk? And she's like, depends if you have something good to say. And Sarper's like, well, no, we both have to talk. So she begrudgingly sits down. And I just want to call out, y'all. Shekinah was like, I've done so much for him. I mean, I don't even have space in my closet for my things because all of his things are there. And I was like, Shekinah, you knew that this man was coming for 2 years when you started the visa process. You're mad because you don't have closet space? Where did you think that his things were gonna go? Personally, when she lists that as something that she's done for him, I don't think that that's something that you should throw in your partner's face when they have no choice. They can't get a job. You were the one that was supposed to be in charge of getting a space that was big enough for the both of you. The fact that y'all are on top of each other is not his fault. And I say that because I have seen her online being like, he's a 40-something-year-old man. If he wants a bigger place, it is on him to get it for us. Okay, I totally understand you wanting him to be a provider. But when you come to America on the K-1 visa, you can't work for X amount of time until you get certain documents. So having her emasculate him in that way is interesting when we've seen her glorify that he's this big macho man for so long. I think, and I don't even like Sarper, but I think the way that she is treating him on top of him feeling the way that he feels because of the visa is very interesting. I say all that because I recognize the changes in her, and Sarper has always given me like the ick, but he has been consistent with that. So when they sit down and have this talk, he tells her, I feel depressed. I feel weak here. I feel like I have no power here. And she's like, oh, poor you. You love LA. And he's telling her that he doesn't. And she's like, no, you love LA. And then 3 days ago, you decided that you hated LA and me. And he's like, I'm depressed. And she's basically like, no, you're not. Don't get me wrong. Being depressed, being anxious, being whatever doesn't give you permission to be a monster. And it sounds like she feels that he is punishing her for him feeling weak. But I think that, this visa is hard on everyone involved. And I think that it's bringing out the ugly in both of them. And he's like, you're not the same person that I met. It sounds like he feels like she doesn't like him. And, I don't think he's wrong. I think that she hates him in her space. And he feels a way about it because he's like, in Turkey, I let her take over my entire apartment. I let her take over my relationships with my family. I let her have full range. And I feel like here, I'm a bit of a prisoner. And it doesn't help that Shekinah's being cold, you guys. She's being an ice queen. And she says that who he is to her is what she's going to be to him. So I guess she's implying that he's being cold, so she's going to be cold. But even in this conversation, I'm not getting that. I think she's aiming to hurt him. She's like, you're being really reckless with this relationship. And honestly, I don't even know if I want to marry you. And that was like a record scratch moment for him. And he says something like, oh, Shekinah, if we break up, you're going to be crying for years over me. And he's like, and that's not ego. That's just that I'm perfect for you. And she's like, boy. And it's just so interesting because Shekinah has spent literally the entirety of their time on 90 Day Fiancé praising him, being like, he is perfect for me. I like that he controls me. I like that he controls what I eat, what I wear. I like that he's possessive because I'm possessive over him too. Like all of these things that we were like, girl, no. But if she likes it, who are we to yuck her yum, right? And all of a sudden, all of the things that make him him, now that they're in America, she's like, I could do without. And I don't know, I get the sense that Shekinah is self-sabotaging a little bit because, and I feel like all single girlies go through this, we're so stuck in our ways. And Shekinah has had to be hyper independent for so long. But I don't think you should I think right now, because she's upset, she's like, I can get rid of him. But you put in so much work. You spent so much money, so much time going to Turkey. You're going to just throw away your relationship because he was moody for 3 days? She's seated having this conversation and she's just like unimpressed and is telling him, you should have thought better before starting to talk to me. And he's like, you're going to pick apart anything I say anyway. And she was like, well, if that's how you feel, then you're not the man that I need. Because my man would know exactly what to say to me. They're both sucking at resolution. And again, I do not like either of the plastics. But I think that Sarper is fighting for this relationship in this conversation. Is it difficult to be together? Yes. But I don't want to lose you. You are 1 in a million to me. And she's like, honestly, I could find someone that's more compatible with me. And again, I think that she's aiming to hurt him. And he's like, there's no one more compatible for you than me. Like, you gotta give it to him. I would be crying if someone told me that, okay? But he's like, I'm the one. I am your match. And she's like, whatever, I'm done with this conversation, and just gets up. And he's like, I hate this. And she's like, well, I hate it more. So immature. For their big ass ages, this fight really is just beyond. And she's upstairs, telling the producers, like, honestly, I never wanted to get married. I just am doing this because it's the only option with Sarper. And again, she could mean it, right? She's stuck in her ways. But again, I think that it's easier to say that when your family hates him and you're upset at him, and it would just be easier to start with a clean slate. But you've put in time, you owe it to yourselves to see it through. Take the full 90 days and see if this is it. But the way that Sarper was one click away from going back to Turkey last episode, I would say that they're both testing the limits of their relationship. I would love to know your thoughts, you guys, on all of these crazy kids. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.